In the briefest technological reset known to man, this meeting of the Government Administration and Election Committee will come back to order. And we are back hearing testimony this evening. Next on the list, we have Maria McNamara. Maria, are you present this evening? She was just here. We're going to quickly move to one other person and we'll circle back to Maria when she comes back. Next up, Nadezhda Anakiv. Nadezhda, I'm so sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name. Are you present online with us tonight?
You did well on pronouncing my name. Thank you.
Fabulous. Thank you for humoring me. And thank you so much for being here this evening. Thank you for your patience. And you have the floor.
Thank you very much, and good evening to all of you, all the members of the committee. And I'm here in opposition of the proposed bill 5554. And I would like to thank everybody who spoke before me in opposition to this bill. And I want to say that I share concerns already raised in opposition. And I especially want to thank Senator Harding for testifying in person and for clearly outlining the issues with this bill. I also greatly appreciate Kate Prokop for all the efforts she puts into sharing information with all of us and frankly fighting these bad bills. If you could dedicate time, I encourage you to reread and to re-listen to her testimony. And also, as Senator Sampson pointed out, Caitlin Van Targen also made a very powerful testimony. So please rewatch and re-listen carefully to her points as well. So I'm just repeating what was said before. Raised Bill 5554 removes the requirement for equal party representation on the Legislative Regulations Review Committee and replaces it with proportional membership. In practice, as it stands now, that creates a committee dominated by a single party where outcomes are basically decided ahead of time. It also removes the existing requirement that says provided the co-chairpersons shall not be members of the same political party. That is removed, and it was a clear safeguard for bipartisan leadership. So these changes allow one party to control the committee, removing it as a meaningful independent check. And as you were reminded multiple times today, back in 2021, during the previous huge vaccine exemption debate, thousands of residents participated, many for the first time. And since then, engagement of people has only grown. Those of us who did not care for politics at all before are watching now, and elections are approaching, and voters are watching closely. So please, please, please vote no on HB 5554. And also, people who were speaking about 5551 and are concerned about solar farms and just interested in that subject, I encourage you to find Alexandra Fasulo, Fasulo, who is fighting similar issues in New York and has lots of good information on her public media, etc. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you very much for your testimony tonight, and thank you for your patience in waiting. And are there any questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you so much for being here tonight. And we're moving ahead to Melissa Miller, who I believe is present with us this evening online. Melissa, are you ready? If you could turn off your camera to be with us this evening. Oh, well, I can see you, but I cannot hear you, Melissa. Are you able to turn on your microphone, Melissa? We cannot hear you.
Oh, it let me. Sorry. Sorry about that. I normally have my computer, but I'm actually in my car. I apologize. I was hoping to testify before I had to leave, but anyway.
No worries at all. Thank you. Go ahead. You have
Thank you. Thank you. So I just want to reach out and thank the committee, the members, co-chair Blumenthal, ranking members of the Government Administrative and Election Committee, I just wanted to let you know, when I submitted my testimony, somehow it got under 5555 instead of 5554. So I just wanted to reread my testimony really briefly, because it's basically kind of reiterating what a lot of people have said today. I really don't like politics, and I basically um, joined my board of finance last session, although I lost my seat, which is okay. I mean, it is what it is, but that's our system. But I wanted to testify about this bill. I believe that it's truly a power grab. This committee reviews regulations. It is a 50-50 checks and balances, which we truly need in fairness. This is an attempt to take power from the minority party. This aims to modify the composition, specifically addressing party representation. This is a blatant attempt to silence the minority party, which is very much against what our Constitution says. This committee has been bipartisan since the 70s, and it's worked for all parties. You know, there has been a time when Republicans had the whole authority, and now the Democrats have the whole thing, but I feel deep in my heart that this should stay truly bipartisan. And right now, government trust is at a low. And if you allow this bill to go through, it's going to go even further down. We really want transparency, and I just feel like they've pushed through a lot of bills this term that are all intertwining, that basically is truly a power grab by the party that is currently ruling right now. At the end of the day, no matter who is in power, even if it is a slight tipping of the scales or a supermajority, you still represent all the citizens of the state, not just those who align with you. Someone else earlier took my line, but Lord Acton said power tends to corrupt, and absolute power will absolutely corrupt. And this definitely does not protect all the citizens of this state if this goes away. Just remember the election year, and the voters will be watching. And if you are the majority party, you might not have a seat next term. Thank you so much, and please vote down SB 5554 and keep this committee fair for all citizens of the state. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Melissa, for being here tonight. Thank you for your patience and for your testimony. Any questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you again for being here this evening.
Thank you. Have a great evening.
You too. Thank you so much. We skipped over Maria McNamara, who I believe is back now. Maria? Thank you for joining us. Just make sure that before you start speaking, there's a little button in front of you. Press that and you'll be able to go ahead. You have the floor. Thank you.
Okay, good evening. So to the honorable members of the committee, my name is Maria McNamara. I'm from West Hartford. I am here representing not just myself, but more than half of the 550 citizens whose voices you actively suppressed last week when you cut off public testimony on HB 5044 and SB 450 and the proposed oversight of our homeschool families. You sent a clear, chilling message to the people of Connecticut. You are no longer interested in governance. You're interested in control. I'm here to oppose HB now, this week, 5554. It is not an administrative adjustment. It is the next step in a coordinated predatory effort to dismantle the checks and balances that prevent this state from sliding into total one-party rule. By stripping away the requirement for bipartisan composition on the Regulation Review Committee, you are attempting to remove the only obstacle left between your agenda and absolute unchecked authority. You hide this power grab behind dense, technical, and purposely opaque language. You hope that because the text is boring and bureaucratic, the public won't realize you are building a weapon of exclusion. Let us be clear about your strategy. You claim that changing the board's makeup will allow for better expertise. We know what this means. It means you're replacing the requirement for opposing viewpoints with a mandate for conformity. An echo chamber is not a board of experts, it's a partisan instrument. The bill is part of a larger systemic pattern. Whether you're forcing medical mandates on our children and residents, attempting to insert state oversight into our homeschools, or silencing more than half of 550 testifiers, the goal is always the same: to remove parental and individual agency and consolidate it in Hartford. You are destroying the bipartisan guardrails that prevent executive and bureaucratic overreach. You are building a system that allows you to act unilaterally without the necessity of consensus, while insulating yourselves from the fallout of your policies. Questions for the committee: if your intention is not to create a one-party board, why is this change necessary at all? Will you commit right now, right here and now, to an amendment that preserves the current 50-50 bipartisan requirement? And two, given the recent suppression of more than half of 550 testimonies, how can you expect the public to believe that HB 5554 is anything other than another attempt to bypass dissent and silence the people you are elected to represent? And three, why is this proposal presented through intentionality, complex, obfuscated language? If this is in the public interest, why are you hiding its true impact in bureaucratic legalese? And to conclude, you are attempting to institutionalize your control so that you never again have to face a dissenting voice. You are building a machine that future administrations will use to strip away our remaining liberties. I urge this committee to reject HB 5554. The people of the state see exactly what you're doing. We're tired of being silenced. We are tired of the mandates, and we are tired of the constant power grabs. Stop rigging the rules and start respecting the sovereignty of the families you have spent this session trying to control. Vote no on HB 5554.
Thank you so much for being here this evening. Are there any questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you again for being here. Next on the agenda, we have M. Gerber.
Yes, hi, how are you? Good evening, chairpersons, vice chairs, ranking members, and distinguished members of the Government Administration and Elections Committee. My name is Munji Gerber, and I'm a concerned citizen and taxpayer of Connecticut residing in Senate District 8. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today. I am here to express strong opposition to Race Bill 5554, a proposal that would fundamentally weaken bipartisan oversight of Connecticut's regulatory process and erode the public trust in the fairness and transparency of our government. For decades, the Regulation Review Committee has been one of the few places in our state government where ordinary people could trust that politics would not override fairness. It has been a guardrail, an assurance that no matter which party held power, regulations affecting our families, schools, businesses, and communities would be reviewed with balance, restraint, and bipartisan cooperation. Unfortunately, 5554 dismantles that trust by eliminating the requirement that the committee's co-chairs come from different political parties and by removing explicit minority party authority. This bill invites one-party control over the entire regulatory gatekeeping process. It tells the public that oversight is no longer a shared responsibility. It is, in fact, a partisan privilege. We, the people, already feel the government is distant, unresponsive, and too often driven by political advantage rather than the public good. This bill confirms our worst fears. It says that the rules governing our lives, our schools, our taxes, our healthcare, our property, our businesses can be shaped behind closed doors by whichever party happens to hold majority that year. This is not how we build trust. This is, in fact, how trust is lost. And once public trust is broken, it is extraordinarily difficult to restore. For example, in lines 22 to 24 of the bill, there's an elimination of the bipartisan co-chair requirements. It strikes the longstanding requirement that two co-chairs represent different political parties. This change has a significant legal and procedural consequences. Co-chairs control agenda, meeting schedules, and the order in which regulations are considered. Without bipartisan leadership, one party can delay, accelerate, or block regulatory actions for political advantage. When the process for reviewing those regulations become partisan, the public will lose their confidence that decisions are being fairly made fairly. A healthy democracy requires shared power, checks and balances, and procedural safeguards that protect the minority voice, even if it's inconvenient. For these reasons, emotionally, civically, and legally, I respectfully urge the committee to reject Race Bill number 5554. Connecticut deserves a regulatory oversight system that is balanced, transparent, and trustworthy, but this bill moves us in the opposite direction. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you for being here tonight. I know you're in a neighboring town from mine. So are there any committee questions this evening? Hearing none, thank you so much, Ms. Gerber, for being here tonight and for your patience and waiting to speak with us this evening.
Thank
And
you, Representative Osborne.
welcome. Good to see you this evening. Moving on next to Representative Bugby, Bill Bigby is he here this evening? Not seeing him, I'll move ahead to Senator Kissel.
Good evening, Vice Chair Osborne, esteemed members of the Government Administration and Elections Committee, of which I used to be a member decades ago. I'm State Senator John Kissel of the 7th Senatorial District, representing 100,000 fabulous people in Enfield, Somers, Suffield, Windsor, Windsor Locks, East Granby, Granby, and Ellington. And also, for the record, I'm here in opposition to 5554, of which you've heard recent testimony. And also, for the record, the previous 2 years to this session, I was co-chair of the Regulations Review Committee, and currently I serve as a ranking member of the Regulations Review Committee. The Regulations Review Committee does not follow the rules of any other committee in this building, and it was created separately in the 70s, as previous speakers have stated. And unlike our normal committees where the majority and minority have representation on the committees based upon elections, this one was specifically tailored to be evenly balanced. And there's a reason for that, more than just the spirit of bipartisanship. The Regulations Review Committee, unlike all the other committees which were set up to effectuate the will of the electorate as the Senate and House move forward, has been set up as a balance to the executive branch. And when it was created, it was felt that it was important for the legislature as a whole to speak with a nonpartisan, bipartisan, unified voice when it came to balancing the power between the three branches of government. So it's a whole different creature. It operates under its own separate rules, as Representative Godfrey has informed us a number of times as a longstanding member of the committee. There was another committee of which I used to be chair years ago, Program Review and Investigations, and that benefited from its bipartisan nature. And unfortunately, I believe some people didn't like some of the decisions that came out of there as far as recommendations, and it was disbanded. And I think we all lost in the long run because of that. Let's not do that with the program, with the Regulations Review Committee, because we should be united, Democrats and Republicans and anybody else that gets elected to our legislature. We should be united when we deal with the executive branch. And the power to be feared here is the executive branch. They have vast amounts of power. And so when their departments create the regulations, we don't as a legislature create them, they create them to effectuate our policy. And what Regs Review does is it just makes sure that those regulations accurately reflect the will of this legislature. So we don't benefit by having Republicans and Democrats at odds with one another. We benefit when we are united in dealing with this super powerful executive branch. So I am concerned about the tyranny of the majority. Just because you have the votes doesn't make it right, but I would really strongly urge you to vote no on 5554 because I think it should be unique, because all of us as a legislature should be united in dealing with the executive branch. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Senator, for being here tonight. Are there any questions from the committee? Representative, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Senator, for being here, and you're sticking out this late to give your testimony.
That's okay. Judiciary is still going across the hall.
But you bring a vast wealth of knowledge and experience to this job in general, but with your experience on serving on this very committee we're talking about, can you speak to how it has worked in the past as a 50-50 bipartisan split?
To be very honest, the only time where the 50-50 split came into, well, it comes into play occasionally, but in a way that may not be intuitive, because it's evenly split, you need to have a bipartisan consensus to do things on that committee, because one party can't just push it through. So the biggest one that was controversial in the last tenure when I was co-chair of that committee was the electric vehicle. Would we follow the East Coast mandate, the Washington DC mandate, uh, or follow California, which was very much fast-tracked with electric vehicles? And as you may recall, about 3 or 4 years ago, that was an extremely hot button issue. People were very much aware of it. And there was a huge push by my friend and over at the Commissioner of Department of Energy and Environmental Protection, Commissioner Dykes, and Governor Lamont. They were pushing the electric vehicle mandate based on California like crazy. And they really felt that they had the wind at their back. Then they got that regulation down to regulations review, and it really ran into a roadblock. And as it turned out, that while there was somewhat there was unified Republican opposition, there were enough Democratic votes to put the brakes, no pun intended, on that regulation that was coming down out of DEEP, Energy and Environmental Protection. So when the executive branch finally realized that the handwriting was on the wall at the very last second, and the administration does this all the time because they want to save face and live to fight another day, they withdrew the regulation. As it turned out, they never brought it back because they realized they were on the wrong path and they don't have the support, both Democrat or Republican. But in that instance, the parties came together, the legislature spoke as one voice, and only by doing that were they able to thwart the will of the executive branch that was poised to push that on an unwilling populace. That happens in other instances too, but a lot of times what the executive branch will do is when we're united, Democrat, Republican, because it's evenly balanced, they will pull back on their regulation and then rework it so that it more accurately reflects the will of the legislature, which for decades has been predominantly Democrat. But it works really well because the Regs Review Committee speaks for us as a third branch of government, and we need to be together because the executive branch has vast powers at its disposal. And they find it cumbersome, but it works, and it's worked for decades.
You raised some very good points that I'm not sure how you even refute. Can you paint a little picture for us if we do pass this, what that committee might look like or how it might function?
Well, we have a rule in the legislature, both Senate and House chambers, against ad hominem attacks. So I don't perceive ill will with this at all, although people might look at the practical ramifications. But I think that we would lose an opportunity as a third branch of government, first of all. And then the executive branch can just sort of bypass the rank and file and cut a deal for the regs, just like they do with budgets and everything else, between the legislative leadership, and currently it's the president of the Senate and the Speaker of the House and their subordinates. But like so many other things in this building, the rank and file, we will move things along, but a lot of the decisions are made at the top. And I just think the regs are so important and that all of us should be together because, again, it's not passing new laws that regs does. It's not effectuating policy. It's making sure that the policies that were put in place, typically by whomever the majority is, but a lot of bills pass through haggling and working compromises and deciding how long debates are going to go, that once those laws are passed, the devil's in the details, how those regulations are going to implement them. And thank God we have a very nonpartisan, bipartisan support staff for that committee as well. And unfortunately, that may change unintentionally over time if it becomes a biased committee, which it will. And so if the executive branch knows it just has a willing majority in regs review, then I think that takes some of the checks and balances away from how they implement the laws that we pass. And as I said in, for example, the electric vehicle proposal, they took what was a gray area in the statute and they pushed the agenda they wanted to push. And it turned out that there were a majority of us that were still around when that was originally put in place said, no, 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 we didn't want to go the California route. Another thing I just want to raise while you're asking these questions is we just this year ran into a problem where there was a policy effectuated by the Department of Public Health affecting nursing homes. But that policy changed, and it had to do with the ratio of people working with our frail elderly and those that are in nursing homes. It was a wonderful policy, but the way it was pushed down is they said, oh, there's no issue here. They failed to point out, and we had to raise the red flag and slow it down, that yes, public health, you may be okay with this, but you didn't bounce it off of social services, who has to pay the freight. How much is this going to cost? And lo and behold, it was going to throw our whole bipartisan biannual budget out of whack by millions and millions of dollars. So they had to go back to the drawing board because of us saying, listen, this is affecting another part of what we've done as a legislature that you are not even taking into consideration. And we actually had to make a big effort to bring OFA into the analysis of these regulations, which we've effectively done. So it's not like we're just doing things Democrat, Republican. We're trying to protect and effectuate the will of the legislature as a whole, and also limit ourselves from having to clean up the mess of an executive branch that if they push a certain policy, they haven't taken into consideration all the other ramifications.
Thank you. That's all the questions I have. I appreciate you sharing your experience and your time with us as we consider this important bill. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Representative.
Are there any other questions this evening? Thank you, Senator, for being here. I will say I have benefited from bipartisanship this evening. I thank my good colleague on the other end of the table for the cookie he brought me this evening in the bipartisan spirit. Senator, I'm fortunate to serve on Judiciary with you, and I always benefit from your years of experience and your perspective that is informed by your lengthy service here. So thank you very much for coming here tonight to GAE. We've heard a perspective from you this evening that we hadn't yet heard, and you've certainly informed us a lot, and you've given us things to think about. So thank you so much for your time here this evening.
And I feel likewise about your participation on Judiciary. You're a tremendous asset on that committee as well as here in the legislature. Thank you, Madam Vice Chair, and thank you, esteemed members of the GAE committee.
Thank you. Have a great evening. Moving on, is Amy Johnson present with us?
Yes. Hi.
Hi, Amy. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. You have the floor. Please proceed.
Members of this committee, I appreciate the time. I know it's been a long day. Everyone wants to wrap up and go home. My name is Amy Johnson. I'm from New Fairfield, Connecticut, and I wanted to let you know that I am in opposition to Bill 5554. Removing this committee is just not bipartisan. It's not a good look. Just because, the Democrats have the numbers doesn't mean that you should do it. You need to think of all constituents, not just the ones that are on your side on this issue. I mean, I was one of the hundreds of people that didn't get to speak on last Wednesday on the Public Health Committee. They decided to, silence many constituents and, limit the testimony. That's not bipartisan. That's not taking all of the constituents into account. So I urge you to do the right thing, not necessarily what your party thinks is the right thing, and, oppose this bill. Thank you for your time.
Amy, thank you for your testimony this evening. Thank you for your patience and sticking it out, especially given that you shared with us that you were not able to do so last week. Are there any questions from the committee? No questions from the committee. Seeing none, I'll thank you again for being here this evening. Next up, we're going to have D. Pearl Barnett, followed by Mike O'Connell, followed by Gino DiGiovanni. Is D. Pearl Barnett here with us this evening?
Yes.
Pearl, good evening. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for your patience. And you have the floor.
Thank you. Good evening, committee co-chair, Senator Flexer, Representative Blumenthal, Ranking Member Senator Sampson, Representative Mastro Francisco, and members of the committee. My name is Dee Pearl Barnett, and I serve as the President and COO at GT Independence. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today in opposition of Senate Bill 487. Before addressing the bill directly, similar to my colleague John Carmichael, I want to briefly explain how self-direction works well, because the structure of this program is important to understanding the operational realities behind the payroll. Self-direction is a model of long-term services and supports that allows individuals with disabilities and older adults to direct their own care rather than receiving services through a traditional model. This means that participants can become their own employers and are able to recruit, hire, train, and supervise the people that support them in their own homes, such as personal care attendants, often individuals they trust, including family members and people from their community. Again, in this model, the participant is the employer. The fiscal intermediary, organizations like GT Independence, supports that arrangement by managing the administrative responsibilities that come with being an employer. This includes processing payroll, handling tax filings, issuing paychecks, and ensuring Medicaid program rules and federal employment laws are followed. Our role is to provide the financial and administrative infrastructure that allows individuals to remain in control of their own care within program rules established by state departments, and ensuring their workers are paid on time. Each month, we process hundreds of thousands of payroll, and that's payroll and vendor transactions. This complexity, we know that paying people accurately is of utmost importance. We recognize a small number of payroll issues have meaningful impact, and seriously, we take that responsibility seriously. Issuing timely and accurate payroll is the priority of our organization and our state government partners. This concern raised in Senate 487, protecting workers and ensuring timely pay, is one that we share. However, the structure of the proposed penalty in the bill raises operational concerns stated by my colleague. There are dependencies in several inputs, disproportionate penalties outlined with 50% when we take a small administrative fee, and there's already existing strong state oversight. Because of this, we respectfully oppose Senate Bill 487, and we would like to work together with the state partners as well as Senate SEIU 1199 and the legislature to ensure that workers are paid reliably and maintain stability in Connecticut's self-directed program. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Barnett. Are there any questions from the committee this evening? Seeing none, thank you again for being here, and thank you for your patience and waiting to share your testimony with us this evening. Next on the testimony list this evening, we have Mike O'Connell. Mike, are you still with us this evening? I think I saw you on.
Just jumped on.
Mike, are you present? You're there.
How are you?
Mike, thank you for joining us this evening. You have the floor. Go ahead.
Hi, good evening. Honored members of the committee. For the record, my name is Mike O'Connell. I'm from the borough of Naugatuck. And like many others today, I'm here to voice my opposition to proposed bill HB 5554. And I would be willing to bet most of our, the public would strongly oppose as well. If only there was time to circulate among our peers and local media. That's been kind of a sprint for us. It's clear that the Legislative Regulatory Review Committee, which has long served as a bipartisan checkpoint with equal representation from both parties, it's clearly under attack. And I believe, in it's my opinion, of course, that's under attack for political gain. And as such, I don't support the changes to the structure of the committee, and I believe that the even split of Democrats and Republicans that has been in place since the establishment of the committee should be preserved to protect equitable representation and rights of the people of the Constitution state. So I'd say please vote no. And that is all. And thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions from the committee? Representative, go ahead.
Thank you. And Mike, thank you, another fellow Naugatuckian. So I just wanted to say thank you for sticking in there and hanging with us this long to share your thoughts on this. Appreciate your testimony and thank you for speaking up. Thank you.
Should be here. Thank you.
Are there any more questions from the committee this evening? Seeing none, thank you again for being with us and thank you for sticking it out. Next on the list tonight, we have Gino DiGiovanni.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Gino DiGiovanni, and I'm from Derby, Connecticut, small city. I opposed HB 5554, the Legislative Regulatory Review Committee, which has long served as a bipartisan checkpoint with equal representation from both parties. This balance has been in place for decades and helps ensure fairness, accountability, transparency in the regulatory process. A constitutional republic is a form of government where representatives are elected by its citizens to govern, but their power is limited by a written constitution which protects individual rights against majority rule. Unlike a direct democracy where majority rule goes unchecked, a constitutional republic prevents that. This proposed legislation is clearly a bad faith attempt to change the rules after constituents exposed their dangers of centralized power at the public hearings here at the Capitol last week. I do not support changing the structure of this committee, and it should remain an even split of 7 Democrats, 7 Republicans, as it has been since its establishment over 50 years ago. Voters are watching, and they're watching very closely this year as it is an election year. Please honor our request to preserve this bipartisan safeguard and vote no on HB 5554. Thank you for your time, and I appreciate it.
And thank you for your testimony. Are there any questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you for being here tonight. Thank you for your patience and sticking it out with us this evening. Next on our agenda this evening, we have Christina Torosho. Christina, are you with us? Are you there on the, present here in person? Thank you for joining us. Just make sure you press the button in front of you under the microphone so we can hear you. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. Can you, Mr. DiGiovanni, can you come back for a moment? We do have one question from another representative online. Sorry about that, Representative Gauthier.
Go ahead.
Representative Gauthier, you may go ahead. Representative Gauthier, you're mute. You perhaps have the wrong microphone selected, Representative Gauthier. Representative? We may not have a question from the panel. We do not. Representative, Representative Gauthier, can you try to speak to see if we can hear you? He can't hear us. We can't hear him and he can't hear us. Well, I'm so sorry.
I'll stay for a few minutes while you can work out.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
All right, so we will go back to Christina and perhaps we will get our tech issues worked out before then. Representative Gauthier, maybe you can work with our clerk in the meanwhile. Thank you, Christina. You have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you to the Government Administration and Election Committee for being here so late today and for hearing us. My name is Christina Chodasho and I live in Oakdale. I oppose HB 5554. Changing the standard of equal representation is inappropriate and undermines an important safeguard. Equal representation serves as a critical check on majority power. Historically, it has allowed minority voices to prevent the passage of controversial mandates. Preserving this balance ensures that no single group can dominate the process and that policies are implemented fairly and thoroughly. Maintaining equal membership for each party also guarantees that a range of perspectives is present at the table. Legislators bring different backgrounds, different experiences, and different constituencies to the discussion. When both parties have equal representation, these diverse viewpoints are more likely to be heard and more meaningfully considered. This structure ultimately strengthens the legislative process. Having diverse perspectives will highlight potential flaws and build trust across party lines. It is an opportunity for more thoroughly vetted and effective decisions, fosters critical thinking and a more comprehensive and objective evaluation of the benefits and risks associated with the proposed legislation. Equal membership encourages collaboration, negotiation, compromise, and increases the likelihood that committees will produce bipartisan legislation that reflects broader agreement rather than narrow partisan priorities. Preserving equal representation is therefore essential to maintaining fairness, balance, and public trust in the policymaking process. I also oppose removing the provision that co-chairs may not be members from the same party. Having co-chairs from different parties fosters an environment where all members feel comfortable raising concerns and contributing their perspectives. It signals that the committee is committed to fairness, openness, and collaboration rather than partisan control. Eliminating this requirement would undermine the free exchange of ideas and weaken the committee's ability to operate in a balanced and constructive manner. Retaining bipartisan co-chairs also helps ensure that discussions remain transparent, respectful, and inclusive of differing viewpoints, which will ultimately strengthen the committee's work and its ability to produce thoughtful, broadly supported policies. I do not support changing the structure of this committee. It should remain an even split, as it has been since it was established. I urge you to vote no on HB 5554. And I can't really add much that hasn't been said before, except that I am a homeschool mom. Have been here last week for a number of different hearings, and I am teaching my children how government works and sometimes, thank you, how it shouldn't work. And I'm also teaching them to show up and be heard. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your patience. You stuck it out in person this evening. Thank you so much. Are there any questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you again for your testimony this evening. We're moving on now to Richard Levesque. Richard, are you with us this evening online?
Yes. Good evening, Madam Chairperson.
Good evening. You have the floor, sir. Please go ahead.
Thank you. My name is Richard Levesque. I live in Broadbrook section of East Windsor, and I'm here to ask your support for House Bill 5551 as it pertains to large-scale solar, giving municipalities and citizens more voice in the outcome. 7 years ago, my wife and I started making plans to retire. We were currently living in Ellington and wanted to stay in the general area as we liked it. It's quiet and it was within short distance from our kids and our grandkids. We found Broadbrook to fit that need. And obviously we did our due diligence by looking at the surrounding land to make sure we weren't going to build our new retirement home that would soon be near a potential commercial industrial installation. And the town records showed that the surrounding land was all zoned as farmland and residential land. So we moved forward and built our home. A year and a half later, to our surprise, a large industrial solar array was built across the street from our development. And you've heard testimony from some of our constituents and our first selectmen, and I'm one of those homeowners that's had to deal with the last 4 years of noise, fires, vegetation, eroding across from that solar array. And since then, we've had another solar installation down the street on Thrall Road that I can see from my yard. And of course, a large gravel pit expansion over 100 megawatts, over 500 acres of land. And now the gravel pit expansion has just been approved. And there's also another 100 plus megawatt planned, what they call a solar box project, that if approved our entire neighborhood would be surrounded by solar. We'd basically be in a fishbowl. I personally have sent testimony and spoke at public hearings opposing additional solar arrays, and the siding council has ignored opposition on all these installations. Basically, our voices have fallen on deaf ears. It's beyond comprehension that decisions concerning the landscape of our communities, the quality of life, our farmers are being made solely by a handful of people that have no vested interest in our community, meaning the siding council. It's a travesty what's happening to our town, and we have no power over decision being made, and neither does our elected officials. And so we need to give our towns that power. We need to have a voice. You know, this isn't a installation where it's a one and done. We're sitting here wondering when's the next approval and when's the next project. And so they're just eating up our towns. They're destroying farmlands, active farmlands that's being used to feed the dairy farms, the animals. They're tearing down trees. That's not green. And for what? For solar, electricity that just goes back in the grid that we don't even need in this state. So we need to do some reform, because this isn't about putting a utility facility in your backyard and it's one and done. This is constant. This has been going on for 4 years, and we have no
I'm
voice.
so sorry to interrupt you this evening, sir, but your time is up. If you could summarize the rest of your testimony for us, that would be greatly appreciated.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, so, we need to give some reform. We need to give some voice back to big voice to the town and our elected officials, and make decisions and have the people have a say on any future solar installations, especially in our town where we represent over 30% of the current solar installations. This has to stop.
Thank you again for your testimony. Are there any questions? Seeing none, thank you so much for being here this evening, and thank you for sticking it out with us. Next on our agenda, after I can take my cookie off of it, next on the agenda this evening, Zoltan Hajnal. Zoltan, are you with us?
Hello, yes, I am.
Great. Go ahead, sir. You have the floor.
Great, thank you. So I'm Zoltan Hajnal. I'm speaking on Bill 5544. I'm a professor of political science at the University of California, San Diego. A long time ago, I got my PhD from the University of Chicago, and ever since then, I've been studying local elections, local voter turnout, and issues related to those two things. My work on the topic has been published in the New York Times, Los Angeles Times, and in most of the top academic journals in the field. As such, I'm one of the nation's leading experts on this topic. So I'm not being paid for my testimony today, but what I do want to do is very quickly give you a sense of some of the main findings that we've learned over the course of this year. So in the couple minutes I have, two main sort of agenda items, provide you with those key findings, and then also talk a little bit about the politics of election timing across the country. So in terms of what we know, finding number one, perhaps the only finding that you need to know about or care about, is that the move of local elections to the same day as statewide elections doubles or more than doubles voter turnout. That's basically the case in every study that's looked at this, more than a dozen studies. So this is a big deal for local voter turnout. Finding number two, moving to even year elections makes the electorate more representative of the underlying city population. So it not only brings out more voters, but it brings out more diverse and a more representative set of voters. Finding number three, by bringing out this larger and more diverse set of voters, moving to even years, moving to on-cycle elections, helps ensure that local governments listen to and are more responsive to the median voter in the city. Finding number four, moving to consolidated or even or on-cycle elections saves money. So by having fewer elections to administer, a lot of the administrative costs go away. Now, a little bit about reform in the country. So of all of the local reforms that a committee like this can consider, the move to even year elections is uniquely popular. So in survey after survey, 2/3 of Americans favor the move to vote on cycle. And of course, they do that because they prefer voting in one election at one time rather than in multiple elections on multiple days in multiple different locations. When this is put on the ballot in cities, it passes more than 90% of the time. The reform is unique in that it's also incredibly bipartisan. So in these same surveys, vast majority of Democrats, vast majority of Republicans, and the vast majority of independents all favor the move on cycle. And then finally, it's been extremely successful across the country. In the last decade or so, 6 states have moved to mandate local elections, local on-cycle elections. And about 100 major cities have made the move, including Los Angeles, Las Vegas, Phoenix, and so on and so forth. So this is a powerful move, and it's one of the most democratic things you can do. It'll make life easier for your constituents, and there's essentially no political blowback in most circumstances. So that's it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. Are there any questions from the committee? Senator Honig.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Professor Hanel, we heard testimony earlier today in opposition to this, and the argument that was made was that doing something like this would turn our local elections into kind of more national type elections where the prevailing partisanship from the national elections would kind of take precedence over local issues. Can you comment on that?
Sure. It's natural to think that, but the data are actually in conflict with that belief or theory or assumption. So a few different things I think are important to point out. One is, as you make it easier to vote in local elections, you get a broader set of the public, and that broader set in particular includes a disproportionate number of independent voters who identify as moderate ideologically. So rather than polarizing the electorate, you're actually bringing in more folks from the middle. Secondly, we now have enough data to be able to look at what individual voters know about local issues, local political affairs. And what we're seeing is that voters in cities that have elections that are at the same time as statewide elections actually have as much, or in some cases more information, more engagement about local political affairs. So they actually know a little bit more. And we're finding that, so for example, whether you choose to reelect your school board incumbent or not is highly dependent on whether students' test scores go up or down when the election is held at the same time as a statewide election, but not when it's held off cycle and a small unrepresentative set of voters is turning out to vote. So this in some ways makes local elections even more focused on local political affairs.
Thank you very much for that answer. Very informative. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Honig. Representative.
Are you still there?
Professor, are you still with? Go ahead.
Hi. Do you have a website or somewhere we can go? I'd like to look at some of your work. Can we ask that?
Sure. Yeah, I'm happy to send stuff to you, but also the website evenyear.org gives you a pretty good intro into the research that's been done, and happy to send more if you have additional questions.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Are there any other questions from the committee? I have one question for you myself, Professor. This is kind of idle curiosity, but here in Connecticut, we do have these even odd year election systems set up. And generally what you tend to see is that people first become interested in serving at the local level, and maybe in the next cycle or the cycle after that, they decide to, throw their hat in the ring and maybe run for a different office in the other off-year from their current office. I'm just curious, is there any data about whether having local elections on the same even year election as statewide, is there any stagnation, or is there any data to suggest that people aren't running for higher office because it's at the same time as the election for the office they currently hold?
Sure. I don't think we have any data on rates of running for higher level of office. What I will say is we have data on sort of turnover at the local level. So when on-cycle elections are instituted in a place, the research shows that that leads to a higher share of, let's say, underrepresented candidates running for office. So in California, that means more Latinos and Asian Americans running. It also means more women running for office. And in both cases, the data suggests that candidates from less typically well-represented groups are more likely to win office. So again, in California, that means Latino elected officials at the local level grow in number. And it also, for most offices, means that the share of local elected officials who are female grows as well. But that doesn't directly answer your question about moving back and forth or moving up from local level to higher level offices.
No, but it's a very interesting point. And in particular, so you're saying that the data shows that there's increased participation in candidacies at the local level by doing it on the even year. Is that correct?
Correct. And then an increased odds of victory at the local level, which makes sense given that you're changing the the makeup of the voting population, and you're getting a lot of younger voters, you're getting a lot of racial and ethnic minority voters, folks who typically don't participate in these off-year elections when it's arguably harder to participate in that election just for local offices.
Well, as a data nerd, I find that really fascinating. So really, thank you so much for sharing your perspective and your information with us this evening. And thank you for joining us all the way from where you are. Are there any other questions? One more from Senator Honig.
Hi, thank you, Madam Chair. Did I hear correctly that you said that when you do even year elections, that there's more turnover at the local level with the offices?
I did say turnover, although I don't actually have a number or a percentage of offices that turn over from one candidate to another. What we looked at was whether you have more Latino, Asian American, African American elected officials over time, and you do find greater representation for Latinos. Does that mean more net turnover or not is not entirely clear, but certainly given that you're going from a smaller electorate to a much larger electorate, you might expect to see some turnover.
So it's potentially a kind of natural term limits type effect?
Yeah, I mean, I would describe it more as, you're moving from a very skewed, uneven, unrepresentative set of voters to one that's more representative. And the biggest change is actually you get an increased share of young citizens participating. And so the research shows that doesn't move you to a more Democratic or more Republican outcome, but you would think and expect it to lead to the election of, say, more younger candidates than you had before because you have more younger voters than before.
Thank you very much for that. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much, Professor, for being here this evening. And that brings us to the next and last person on our official agenda, Wendy Sears. Wendy, I believe you are appearing remote this evening. Are you here to join us, Wendy? Good evening, Wendy.
Hi. Yes, I was planning to be there in person, but I just couldn't get there. So yes, remote.
Please proceed. You have the floor.
I'm here today because I strongly oppose Bill HB 5554 on the grounds that these changes create a partisan political environment whereby policy implementation in a fair and equally represented manner will be compromised. Just as I oppose making sweeping changes to benefit the majority party on the federal level, I also oppose making these same changes on the state level. I believe it gives outsized influence to one political party when it comes to implementation of a law, regulation, or policy that was already passed by the majority party. When an important committee such as Regs Review sees the membership change to benefit one political party, it can easily be understood that the same political party would be outraged when they lose the majority. This is the last committee with 50-50 representation, offering a bipartisan and consistently fair and balanced view on how to implement overwhelmingly partisan legislation. I strongly oppose scrapping the bipartisan structure of this committee in favor of an overwhelmingly partisan structure. That was the end of my prepared testimony, but I also wanted to say that I was in Hartford last week until 3 a.m. so that I could testify against the bills before Education and Public Health. And I know that residents are watching what happens with these egregious bills, especially because these are happening during the short session, and those would be the ones before Public Health, Education, Judicial, and GAE. And I think that how members of these committees vote will determine how we vote in November. And I think that how you vote will also encourage more candidates to run against those who vote in favor of these bills. Thank you for your time today.
Wendy, thank you for sticking it out with us this evening. Are there any questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you again for joining us tonight. And that brings us to the end of our official agenda, but I think we're returning to see if Brandon Nash has joined us again. Brandon, are you here to join us? Huh? Very good. All right, we are moving on then. Is there anybody else left in the committee room? Number 40. Ann Manuski? Ann, are you here with us this evening, in person or online? Not seeing Ann. Is she here now? One moment.
Do I need to sign in or can you hear me?
We can hear you, Ann. Can you turn on your camera to be with us this evening?
I don't know.
Select video?
Yeah, I did select video. I don't know why it's not.
Is your camera covered by any chance? It's all black on our
Oh,
end.
you know what? Thank you, Representative. That's what it was.
Great. Thank you so much. You have the floor. Go ahead, Ann.
Thank you so much. Chairman Flexer, Matt Blumenthal, Vice Chairs Paul Honig, Gary Winfield, and General Administration and Elections Committee. The Connecticut Republican Assembly is an organization which has members and friends totaling over 500 Republicans and conservatives across the 8 counties of Connecticut. We stand firm in our principles and our unalienable rights under the Constitution, as well as the rights and responsibilities within the Constitution, Connecticut Constitution. I am Ann Manuski, a 28-year resident of Connecticut, former licensed professional counselor, and a national director of the Connecticut Republican Assembly. By the Constitution of the United States of America, circa 1787, as amended with the Bill of Rights of 1781, as well as the 1818 Constitution of the State of Connecticut, any act committed by you, state senators and representatives who are members of the 2026 Connecticut General Assembly General Administration and Elections Committee, either support and uphold the Constitution, national and state, or oppose and violate them. This bill, HB 5554, is an apparent usurpation of the rights of the people of Connecticut. Should you vote for, support, or promote this legislation that regulates or restricts our natural inherent rights, you will be in violation of your oath of office. Vote no on this bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Ann. Are there any questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you again for being with us and thank you for sticking it out. We have
Thank you. Good evening.
Have a good evening. Alexis Dudden. Alexis, are you here with us this evening?
I am. Hello. I am in Singapore and unfortunately my video is not working. I am calling in support of raised bill 5548 to amend the Connecticut Freedom of Information Act. I'll be very brief.
Go ahead.
I'll be very brief. I have no idea why the video doesn't work. My name is Alexis Dutton. I'm professor of history at the University of Connecticut in Storrs. Again, speaking in support of raised bill 5548 to amend Connecticut FOIA. I'd like to be abundantly clear that as a historian and researcher, I am strongly in favor of public access to government proceedings. I am not at all in favor of the weaponization of this process. I'll be very brief. My personal experience with this predates the current methods of attack, but March 2020 to January 2022, for nearly 2 years of wasted time and money, there were multiple requests that yielded about 5,000 physical pages of email solely for the purpose of trying to target activity that did not happen. It culminated in January 2022 with complainant threatening the University of Connecticut, and it ended in a hearing where complainant did not show because they had no evidence, not that the university withheld their request, they just couldn't come up with a conspiracy theory that they were attempting to do. And I say this because it's worthwhile amending our process not to prohibit the public from having access to their rightful documents, but to ensure that individuals doing their regular work are not targeted for the purposes of weaponizing the process. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being with us tonight all the way from Singapore, and thank you for your input. Are there any questions from the committee? Any questions? Seeing none, thank you again for joining us.
Thank you.
One last call to see if there's anybody left in the room. Seeing none, this hearing will come to a conclusion. Mr. Chair, would you care to gavel us out, or?
Sure. Thank you, Madam Vice Chair, for taking us across the finish line. Thanks to everyone who testified today. This public hearing of the Government Administration and Elections Committee is now closed.